graveyard, Grifter. Excerpt from Creepy Chronicles, a collection of scary short stories, Volume 2, by Grayson Todd. The small town of Meadow Creek lay just a few miles down the coast from what was once Cliff Haven. Life in Meadow Creek was quiet, almost untouched by the mysterious events that had obliterated its neighboring town. While the news reports blamed a freak storm for the devastation, the skies over Meadow Creek had remained relatively calm, with only a passing drizzle that night. Something didn't add up. Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. A blogger by trade and a skeptic by nature, he'd spent weeks poring over weather reports, news clippings, and anything he could find about Cliff Haven. He had several family members who had perished in the recent tragedy of Cliff Haven, and the official explanation felt thin and hollow, like a poorly told lie. He didn't know why, but he needed to understand what really happened. Late one afternoon, he sat at a worn wooden table in the back corner of Meadow Creek's only diner, nursing a cup of coffee as he spoke with his friend, Carla. They expect us to believe that a storm wiped out an entire town, yet here we are, a stone's throw away, and barely a branch fell. It doesn't make sense, Kyle muttered, staring into his coffee as if it held the answers. Carla, ever the pragmatist, shrugged. Maybe the storm was localized. Freak weather does happen. Kyle shook his head. Localized or not, something about this doesn't sit right with me. And what about the reports of people seeing a giant figure in the storm? You think that's just folklore?
Before Carla could respond, a raspy voice cut through the low hum of the diner. You're right to be suspicious, son. Kyle and Carla turned to see an old, straggly-looking man standing by their table. His clothes were worn, his face lined with age and something darker, regret perhaps, or madness. He leaned on a cane, though his eyes were sharp and unyielding. Name's Griff, the man said, pulling up a chair without asking and sitting down with a grunt. I overheard you talking about Cliff Haven. You're not the only one who thinks something more happened there. Kyle exchanged a glance with Carla before asking, and what do you know about it? Griff leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I know how you can find out the truth. How you can talk to those who were there, even though they're long dead.
Carla frowned, but Kyle was intrigued. What are you saying? I'm saying there's a way to cross over to the other side, to ask the dead what happened in Cliff Haven. I've done it before, and I can show you how, if you're serious about finding the answers you seek. Kyle's skepticism was warring with his curiosity, but he couldn't deny the lure of answers. And why would you want to help me? Griff's lips twisted into a grim smile. Because I've got my own questions that need answering, and I reckon you might be the key. Meet me at the entrance to Dusk Hollow Road, 30 minutes before sunset. Don't be late. You don't want to be caught out on Dusk Hollow Road after dark. Without another word, Griff stood and walked out of the diner, leaving Kyle and Carla in stunned silence. That evening, Kyle found himself at the entrance to Dusk Hollow Road, a narrow, forgotten path that wound its way through the woods outside town. Carla had insisted on coming along, her protective nature overriding her doubts. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows as Griff appeared from the tree line, holding a shovel over his shoulder. Follow me, he said curtly, leading them down the narrow path. The woods grew thicker as they walked, the trees seeming to close in around them. After what felt like an eternity, the path opened into a small, overgrown graveyard. At the far end, separated from the rest, was a freshly dug grave. Kyle felt a chill creep up his spine as they approached the open hole. The air was thick with the scent of earth and decay. He peered over the edge, the pit yawning like an open mouth beneath him. What's this about, Griff? Griff's expression was unreadable as he answered, "This is where the journey begins. Once you're in the grave, I'll cover you with dirt. That's how you cross over to the other side, where the dead can speak to you." Kyle stared at him, realization dawning slowly. "But that's just murder," he stammered, turning to face Griff, his heart pounding in his chest. Before he could react, Griff swung the shovel in a wide arc, the metal edge catching Kyle across the face. Pain exploded behind his eyes as he fell backward, crashing into the grave with a sickening thud. Dazed and disoriented, Kyle looked up to see Griff standing over him, expressionless. Carla's screams echoed in the night, cut short by a second dull thud. The last thing Kyle saw before the darkness took him was Griff tossing Carla's lifeless body into the hole before shoveling dirt back into the grave. The weight of both Carla and the earth pressing down on him was too much to handle, and darkness began to take over. Griff, now alone, tossed the shovel over his shoulder and walked away, leaving no trace of what had transpired except the freshly turned earth. As Griff disappeared into the woods, the sky darkened further, the air growing heavy with the scent of an impending storm. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves with a mournful whisper. Far in the distance, thunder rumbled as if in mockery of the truth now buried deep beneath the soil.